Today's guest is Bob Nelson, and Bob is he's a real authority on the subject of employee recognition, motivation, and engagement. He's got a fantastic track record. He's worked with some amazing people. He's done consultancy with some of the best organizations in the world, and he's written a book very recently he published with his colleague Mario Tamayo, called Work Made Fun Gets Done, Easy Ways to Boost Energy, Morale, and Result. And wow, how much and how badly do we need that right now? It's a great interview. His energy is fantastic. His ideas are great. What he's talking about, he just makes it so simple to implement. And, and it's based on science. It's not just a nice idea. It is based on science. And in a time when we are, organizations are really challenged with retaining the talent and attracting talent into their organizations, where we have the great resignation, as he referred to, people leaving organizations, and really talks about how how companies can engage their people, can motivate their people, and can have fun with their people. And people who are having fun tend to stay around other people who are having fun. So I really encourage you to listen to this interview. He is a really good speaker, and now you can understand why he is a very, very, very highly regarded and much in demand keynote speaker on that circuit. So sit back and listen to the very entertaining, very interesting, very engaging, and very informative Dr. Bob Nelson. Bob, it's great to have you with us here today. I really am delighted. You are a leading authority on the whole subject of employee recognition, motivation, and engagement. And looking at your bio, it's very impressive, actually. You've consulted with 80% of Fortune 500 companies. You've collaborated with Ken Blanchard, and you've been the personal coach to Marshall Goldsmith, both of whom I would be great admirers of. So great bio, but thank you so much for being here today. Yeah, I can imagine. Maybe just give a little bit of your background just in context before we dive into your book.
Well, as I've spent my whole career kind of swimming in this arena of employee engagement, employee recognition, employee experience, how to maximize getting the best from employees, for them and for the company, and the secrets of doing that. That's what my research and writing and work is all about. And I love it. And it's great to see the impact that you can have. And that's, as an author, it doesn't take much to keep you going, so.
And in your opinion, Bob, you've been doing this for a few years now. Have you seen real progress being made in this area, or has the progress been slower than you would have liked to have seen?
A good question. And actually, to be honest, it's been slower than I expected. Initially, when I did my dissertation on the topic of employee recognition, why managers do or don't thank their employees when they do a good job, what could be simpler, right? I thought, in a year, everyone's got it, we're going to be doing it. And it doesn't work out that way. It's like it takes people in the company to say, okay, we're going to take this seriously. And sometimes they don't take it seriously until they've got great pain that they're, and right now we're in one of those times because we're in the great resignation and people are leaving, and people had the pandemic to think about what they really want to do, and it's not what they're doing now. So now they want to do something else. And so there's a lot of churn right now. And for every person you can hold on to, that's one less person you have to hire.
Yeah, exactly.
Hiring is very hard, but if you could, it starts with holding on to the people you got, and I've always been amazed when I've run into companies that have a lot of turnover and well, what are you doing to fix that? Well, we're hiring more recruiters. I'm going, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So you can get people in faster to look around and say, well, this is a terrible place to work, and they're gone. Well, why don't you just fix why they're leaving? Why don't you find out why they're leaving, first of all, and then do something about it? And actually, simple things like we all think, well, it's got to be we're not paid enough, but it's often the intangibles of of not being valued for the job I
Yeah.
do, not being respected, not feeling part of the team, not and certainly just not being valued is Robert Half International found that to be the number one reason why people leave their jobs is they don't feel valued for the job they're hired to do. What could be simpler?
Yeah, it's not complex. I mean, the timing of your publishing your latest book, because I know you've written a number of books. The latest book that you've written, of the work made fun gets done. There you have it. Easy ways to boost energy, morale, and results. That you've co-written with your colleague Mario Tamayo. Boy, how timely was that? Well, I mean, with everything going on with COVID, I mean, I'm sure you'd love to take credit for the fact that it was just strategically done and you timed it to actually coincide with that. Maybe that is not.
Yes. Just as I planned. Yes.
Yeah, just as you planned. But it's right. It is an extraordinary timing, though, isn't it? Because there's so much stress.
Well, yes and no. Yes, it's a salve that can help a lot of stress that people are having right now, but also for someone that's really in crisis, and we were talking before we got on about the healthcare industry, for example, and if you are just in absolute crisis, you don't think about, well, how can we have people enjoy their job more? It's like, what? We're gonna focus on that when we're not wall to wall with patients that don't have enough beds. I was just sharing with you how where I live, that a lot of the hospitals now cannot take more patients, that they are sent away driven to another hospital, maybe 45 minutes or an hour away, because they're just out of room, they're out of staff. And so it's, when you're in a crisis of any type, it's hard it'd be like handing someone a Band-Aid if they're bleeding from their artery,
Doesn't really, because, I mean, when you talk about, I mean, work should be fun. That's been around as a kind of a thought and idea thrown out for an awfully long time. So no one's going to come along and say, well, no, actually, I disagree with you. Work should not be fun. I mean, it's a bit of motherhood and apple pie, isn't it?
Well, actually, no, I still have that. And it's just, it comes from the older generation, which are usually on top of the organization. And it's very easy to say, well, you know what, here's an idea. I'm paying them well. I'm giving them benefits and opportunity. They can have fun on the weekend, So that's kind of old line thinking that can hold. And if the CEO's not in for it, it's not going to happen. So we're not going to waste money or time talking about something like this. Or the other thing that I've run across, because I've been working with companies on this, is I find individual managers. Yeah, I agree with you, but I don't want to be associated with this topic. I want people to take me seriously. We could you could take work fun, but I want to be taken seriously. I don't want to be laughed at. I don't want to appear silly. So that could be a very real problem to say, actually people might think more of you because you're allowing them to integrate work with things that they enjoy, which could be, in this day and age, flexibility of work schedule would be a huge one. Autonomy of work schedule, trusting them. You're giving them more trust. You're allowing them, right now we're in a big conflict that's going to continue about hybrid work.
Yes.
Having people work from home. And it's like, people are going to think more of you because you trusted them to allow them to continue to work from home. But but they need to be in here for, to meet with others. Do they really? Okay. Check that one, because I don't think that's true. Well, they have to be here, or the one I run into recently is like, well, they have to be here to experience the culture. I actually did a research study just in the last 6 months where we looked at pride in work and in organizations, and we found that there was no difference in the pride people had in their work wherever they worked, and there was people had more pride for an organization that allowed them to work from home. Okay, because there was, again, that trust that they said, wow, the other people have to come in. They could have said, you have to come in, but they saw I was a performer, that I make it happen, and that I'm diligent, and so they trust me. And so,
Yeah.
wow, I love this organization. And
Yeah.
and what's happening is if 58% of employees that had chance, no, it was like 70% of employees, 71% had got a chance to work from home during the pandemic, for typical white collar jobs, that of those people, 58% said if they were forced to come back to the office, they would quit
Yeah.
and find someone else where they could work remotely, because they've proven it works, and it
Yeah.
definitely works for them, where they can have better integrate everything they're trying to do in their life. My son actually changed jobs here in the last year. He now works for a company that is 100% virtual. There's no place to go into. 100% virtual, and it works
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
work with it. Just all the things, they get all the
Yeah.
work done. And when they have a meeting, people are presenting, they record in advance, and people view the presentations in advance at their own leisure. They could be
Yeah.
at midnight, it could be whenever it works for them. And then when they get together, they have a much more efficient, shorter meeting. They just summarize quickly and go to questions.
And
it's
go
not
to
a
it.
it's not an hour and a 2 hour meeting dragging through, and so it's much more efficient.
Yeah.
And people say, well, what about the social aspects? Well, actually, he lives in Seattle. He does meetups with other people that work for the company. They're not meeting in the office. They go and they meet at a restaurant or go. You can get done what you want to
Yeah.
if you've got clarity and motivation. You don't
Yeah.
have to be in an office
Yeah.
in a cubicle with other
Can,
people.
can I go back? Because I'm really interested in what you just said there earlier on, because you do hear this being said, and I'm just interested in just going a little bit deeper on it, that, okay, about the culture of the organization. So if people aren't in, they're not going to get the culture. How do you kind of argue against that belief? And how do you actually then really ensure that the culture is experienced, that they're engaged with the culture, and that people can live the culture in a remote world?
Well, personally, I just say it's BS. And then I'll cite the research I just did, which found that people had more pride in an organization if they were allowed to work from a distance from home, and that makes sense, because they've got greater respect, greater trust. And so, no, show me what exactly about the culture, about being in a brick and mortar building that you think is so special. And it's like, oh, well, they got to have training, so we could do that online. Well, they got to have socialization. Well, I just gave you an example. My son works for an all virtual company, and they still have socialization. They get together, whoever wants to get together, and maybe it's the younger people, maybe it's, and they get together and they do something, and they get to know each other off the work itself, and that makes for stronger relationships for the work. So that's good. But please don't tell me, no, the magic only happens when they come into the office.
Come into the office. That's not true. And
The
going back to what you were saying,
the CEO of JP Morgan recently said in New York City, if you can go out to dinner in New York City, you can come to the office. Well, bravo. What an observation. It's not true, though. In fact, 3.5 million people have moved out of New York City during the pandemic. And part of that was, well, now that they could work from home, let me go back to where I came from, and in a small town that I don't have this commute. I don't have, I've got a larger house and a bigger life than spending 2 hours a day commuting and being on the subway or whatever. And all that's gone. It's not coming back.
No, it's gone forever. Going back to, okay, there's some organizations would, but I'd imagine it's I don't know, but I'm guessing it's a relatively smaller percent that would say, okay, well, no fun, we pay them, go and have fun somewhere else. But even those organizations that would say, yes, I believe that there should be fun in the workplace. But what tends to happen is that they will say that, but they don't actually make it happen. Or if they do, they actually say, well, the marketing department or the HR department or something like that, but it's not part of the
promotions
leadership
department. They get to have fun. Yeah, it's not. No. We've got to do serious work. It's just I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Everyone wants to.
So how do you make it stick
fun.
then? How do you actually make it stick? I mean, okay, so if you go into an organization to really make it stick and happen.
Well, how I make it stick, and this is actually my 31st book. So what's in all my books, they're all research based, but within the book, my personal brand is to travel exclusively in real examples from actual companies. So I say, look, open the book anywhere. It's a real example of how someone makes their work more fun and meaningful. So let me give you a couple.
Please.
So I have, and I interviewed a lot of people for this book, and and we collected real life examples, and no two people had the same answer, which was to me amazing, because if you ask me what's fun, I go, well, that's easy. It's when you're laughing and having fun. Well, you ask my wife what's fun, and I have, and she goes, fun is when you had a good day at work, you're productive, and you got home and you said, that was a good day. That was fun. I go, really? That's fun to you? I mean, that's nice, but that's not fun. Well, to her, it is fun. And this is the richness of the topic. That's kind of great, because it's like, open your eyes, open your heart to it, and you'll see it's everywhere. And assert your idea for what we could do that might be fun. When we achieve the goal, for example, and by the way, a big message, I'm not talking about fun in lieu of work. I'm talking about fun integrated with work. Yeah. So it's not one or the other. I'm talking about integration. So it's doing simple things. So example, as I give you, I was interviewing someone from Los Angeles, and they said, I find Yo-Yo Ma, the famous cellist, he did a 3-hour concert to 8,000 people in 2015. And he's still out there doing it, by the way, where he played 3 hours straight, Bach concertios for the cello, 3 hours straight from memory. It's mesmerizing. And she goes, when I really want to have meaning in the work I do, I put that on. And no matter what I'm doing, you feel God's working through him, and suddenly they're working through me. It's like, wow. And I got off the call and I tried it, and it works. It's just right. If you're feeling low, if you're feeling down, put on Yo-Yo Ma on earphones or something, and no matter what you're doing, it's going to be more powerful, more enjoyable, more personally moving to you, for example. Or a lot of people are on Zoom, as we are right now. It's like, well, what can you do on Zoom? Well, actually, if you haven't tried it, do a praise barrage. Well, what's that? That's where you say, hey, before we get into our meeting here, the agenda, let's just take a couple minutes. I like to go around our group as I call someone's name, like everyone else, to speak up and say what you most value about working with that person. 100% positive. Let's start with John. Okay, Sally, Mary. And 10 minutes later, what happens? Everyone has gotten personal validation of their worth and what people, they especially feel they do well at. You've just made the team tighter, working together, and you've lifted every one of them. It absolutely guaranteed works. And I'll tell you the other thing, because what gets recognized gets repeated. Whatever people were called out for, they will become better at that. So if I really value John because he's so creative in coming up with solutions we hadn't thought of. Now he's going to be the guy on that. He's going to do even better. Or someone else, because I enjoyed that Mary, that she always draws out the person that's quiet, because they've got good things to add too. Now Mary's going to be like a hawk on who hasn't spoken yet, and it brings out people's best, and it brings out the best of the team, and it makes the relationships tighter, and you're going to be more efficient taking on the next problem, the next challenge. I worked with ESPN, and a manager there told me whenever we start a meeting, we always do it the same way. We start with 5 things that are going well, 5 things. And usually it's pretty easy, we had this breakthrough yesterday. We solved this problem, or we've signed up this new client. So sometimes it's not easy, but we don't skip that step, because
Right.
that's our home room, that's our touchstone that allows us to take on the next obstacle, no matter what it is.
Mhm.
And that's a simple strategy,
Yeah.
and that is a little bit fun to stop for a moment and reflect
Yeah.
on, well, what's going well, and now bring it on, you know.
Yeah, but that's interesting what you're saying, because that's embedded into a behavior, isn't it? I mean, that's because that's what we do all the
It's
time.
all behaviors. It's all
It's all
behaviors.
behavior,
That's the
because
thing.
very often we talk about fun. People think, oh well, we'll put a few ping pong tables in and a few meditation pods, and there, that's it. Hey presto, we've got fun, and that's
That's
not
not
it at
old school.
all.
That's maybe medium school. That's
Yeah,
you can have a ping pong table. That's not going to guarantee that. A couple of people that play, that'll be fun for them, but everyone else. So I think that's done more for tokenist now.
it's the
But
cosmetic piece of it, isn't it?
yeah,
That
exactly. Hey, see,
just,
we got there's the ping pong table. It's covered, and
yeah,
now it's like, well, yeah, no, that's not it. Free soft drinks in the fridge. Yeah, that's nice. That's not it. You know,
yeah,
those are indicators, but you really have to. It's all about behaviors. You can't legislate fun. You can't
yeah,
have a program. So okay, well, we're gonna have a holiday party. Now that's gonna be fun. Yeah, okay, that'd be nice. But there's some people that won't want to go to the holiday party. What
yeah,
about them? There's some,
yeah,
it's, we said we got past Christmas, and I've talked to people that say, uh, I don't want to go to my wife doesn't want to go to the Christmas party. Well, why not? It's required. It's like,
yeah,
well, last year that one person got drunk and told off the CEO. It was ugly. I don't.
yeah, exactly.
It's like you got to allow people to be who they are and what they want. So
Yeah,
and this is part of the richness of it, because you can have everyone bring their own interpretation.
yeah,
Here's what I'd like to do next week. What would you like to do? Oh,
yeah,
that's fun, and I've done things where we, on meetings, like, and they try different things, and that's where, if you have a whole book of examples,
yeah.
and there's over
It makes it
400
easier.
here, yeah, you could
Yeah,
try it. If it works, and do it again. If it doesn't, turn the page, try the next one.
yeah.
But I would
And
have, go ahead.
so, do you find that it is? I mean, you work internationally, right? So you don't just work in the
Yeah.
U.S. Do you find that there's a difference in the national cultures?
You better believe it. and to be transparent, I haven't ever worked on this topic internationally.
Right. Oh, okay.
But I have on the topic of recognition, and which is a soft, fuzzy, also positive topic. And I mentioned I wrote a book,
Yeah.
1,001 Ways to Reward Employees, that
Which
sold
I will tell everybody, because you told me beforehand, has sold over 2 million copies, which is an
Yes,
extraordinary achievement.
yes, and so I have around the world talked on that topic and worked with companies on that topic, and it varies very widely. In the East, I was surprised to find, for example, in China and Asia, that the way people are rewarded, is at the end of the year they're given a 13th paycheck for 13th,
Yes.
or they're, and that's given to them, and people that are given more based on the size of their family and how long they've worked for the organization. It's like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Is that doing stuff based on tenure doesn't do much for performance, So
Yes.
you if you just recognize tenure, you inevitably end up with a culture of entitlement, where people say, "Yeah, well, I've been here, 15 years, so you owe me,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and what have you done lately for me, and wow, that's, to me, the shoe's on the wrong foot. It's got to be driving performance."
Mm.
And so you got to celebrate people that have excelled, that have achieved their
Yeah.
goals, or have done what they were hired to do, which a lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to recognize someone that did what they were hired to do, and then they end up not recognizing anyone at all, because, well, I'm paying you, so everything you've done you should have done. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, great, I'm out of here because you're a jerk.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. People, there's no tie to the organization,
Yeah.
because no one works just for the paycheck. And so
No.
you got to do these other things,
No.
especially today, because
Yeah.
work has changed so much.
Yeah.
And now it's
One of the challenges that I see as well, and I'm just curious in terms of how the kind of the fun part kind of plays out, because, I mean, nowadays we probably have, 4 generations in the workplace.
Yes.
Simultaneously, which brings its own challenges and it brings its own dynamics. How do you create the fun that connects those generations, or do you try?
Absolutely. Yes, you do try. And so, for example, the millennials, which is currently the largest generation in the workplace, coming up on 75%, 59% of them want to have fun at work. A lot of them, I heard one definition of millennial is that they view it as college plus a paycheck. So whatever freedoms they had in college to do whatever they want and to sleep in and whatever, they expect that same freedom in their job, but also pay me. It's like, and you go, well, that's not how it works. Well, that's how it works for them. And if you don't meet them at some aspect of that, they've got one of their buddies is in a startup with a new app, and they're going to go work with them and have fun, or they're going to start their own company, or so work is changing. The dynamic has changed already, and so now I'm trying to get organizations to catch up and meet people where they're at, not where they should be, or what their the generation before them and before that had to do. So many large companies, and the older a company is, the larger it is, the more likely they're managing in the past. And
but you do need to connect it across the generations, and I'm just curious how you do that.
Well, one example I have in the book was from a CEO that he wanted to do a couple times a year to do an employee activity to bring everyone together, and no matter what he did, it kind of fell flat. That people really, they didn't want to go, or they didn't enjoy it, and he gave it to another executive to do, same results. And finally, instead of pushing on something that wasn't happening, they went to someone younger, a millennial generation, and say, hey, would you take this on? Yes, I would. Thank you. And they use social media tools to survey people and find out what they like, and then the timing. And they ended up doing something never done before. They've kind of done staged things where we go to a restaurant, we have we have dinner, and bravo, and they did something fun. They went to a one of these medieval night shows where they serve you turkey legs, and you see, and everyone loved it. The kids loved it, the families loved it, everyone came, and so he'd been pushing hard on something instead of finding someone else that maybe was better at it, and it was a big eye opener for him to find the person that's got that wants to do it, that believes in the topic. Don't have some other committee come up with something that, okay, we got to do something. So let's do, so sometimes you got to just take a step back and say, what could we do? There's a lot of things you can say, well, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I remember in this book, I had someone that was physically presenting to them, and someone came up to me, and this book has 1,000 ideas, 1,000 ideas. And they came up to me after, hearing me talk for an hour. And I use, in a talk, I'll maybe do, a dozen ideas. I can't put the whole book in the talk, but there was a CEO came up to me and said, you mentioned such and such. We can't do that where we work. And I actually remember what it was. It was around dress code, have loosening up the dress code. No, we can't do that. We have a professional, and I said, I flipped to the book. Is this one here? Is that's the one you can't do? Said, no, we can't do that. And you said we should do that. And I said, and I took their book because they all got the book, and I ripped out that page and I gave it back to them. I said, you got 999 left. It's like everything's not going to work. This is part of the fun of it. Is you get to choose. So you get to mix it up. You get to how you reward people, how you thank people, how you have fun. It's not one person dictating for everyone else. It's allowing an openness to try something different. And if you're someone young and you want to have earbuds and listen to music while you're working at your computer. For someone else, that might be odd, but talk about that. And I have with millennials, and they'll say, "Oh, earbuds. Oh, this bothers you? I could take these off. I just like listening to music when I'm working." And now they're not trying to tune you out. That's just they're trying to see what gets them in the flow better. So be open to it, because you didn't do it or haven't done it doesn't mean it shouldn't. Other people can't do it.
Yeah. So for a leader listening to you today on the podcast here, Bob, and they say, okay, I like this. Where do I start?
Well, of course, get the book. but no, I mean, in tongue in cheek, but really that's what the power of a good book is. It can open your mind to something that maybe you had a noodle of, well, maybe there's something there. Well, open the book. And again, you don't have to say, I'm not telling you got to do everything in the book. I'm just saying, find what's doable for you and for your group and for your organization. And it could be, I've worked this. Tell you this story. I was speaking in Seattle to 800 people, and someone in the front row, I go, "You look really familiar." He goes, and this person said, "Yeah, I heard you speak 6 weeks ago when you were here in Seattle." I go, and I had to come tell you what happened. I go, "Oh, really? What happened?" And she said, "Well, I heard you speak about the stuff we're talking about," and she said, "I left the room saying, this is real. I'm doing this. I'm not asking for permission. I'm doing this with my group." And she did. I said, "Well, what'd you do?" She goes, "Well, we did a bunch of stuff. One of the things, we created a happiness committee. It had 5 people on it. No one knew who they were. It was anonymous, but any one of those 5 people could say, it's time to do something. Morale is down, or we got to recognize that new client we just got in, whatever it was. They could say, whatever, time to do something. And they would do something. And I said, well, like what? What types of things? Well, we're in downtown Seattle. We had a picnic up on the roof. That was fun. We never did that before. We bartered meeting space. Our company, we have these meeting rooms, and we found a company on the next block was a limo company. They didn't have any meeting space, and so we give them once a month. They come use our meeting space for all their employees, and they give us limo rides. We barter, and on and on and on. And she said, it worked. It had people suddenly they had a more of a step in their walk, and they were excited, and it created such a buzz that other people in the company noticed, and other managers would go to her and say, "What are you guys doing over there? You're having so much fun." She goes, "Hey, come to the next meeting. No secrets here." And it just took off, and it organically grew in that organization. And she was charged with bringing that concept not just to her department, to the whole company. Fast forward from that point of that first conversation with that person, 18 months later, that company, Perkins Coie, a law firm of all things, entered the best places to work in America, number 23 on the list.
Wow.
I would contend from one person, not in the top, in the middle. She was a manager in the finance department. We're talking about finance. We're talking about lawyers. This is
a finance department in a law firm. Yeah.
What could be stuffier, right?
Yeah.
Not at Perkins Coie. It's a competitive advantage now. So when they're hiring people, hey, by the way, we have fun here. We're not a stodgy law firm, and people are lined up. Because that's I don't want to go to whoever. No one wants to go to a job where I gotta be bored with what I'm doing 8 hours a day. Are you kidding me? Let me kill myself now. We all need this. And with the blurring lines between home and office, the time is now to step it up, to say, and as I've looked at companies that have fun as a core value, like Salesforce is the number 1 core value. Have fun, it's why are they killing it in the market? It's like, well, that's a piece of it.
Yeah,
you get the best out of people if you allow them to be who they are.
This is fantastic stuff, and I just love what you're talking about. I love the way you're talking about it, and I certainly would encourage everyone to really kind of take some action. Buy the book, figure out what works, and off you go. Before we wrap up, Bob, just 2 questions.
Well, I gotta give you another example.
Okay, do. Okay, off you go.
A million examples. So I last last year, last fall, I worked with NASA,
Right.
space agency, which is ranked #1 best place to work in the federal government in the U.S. Federal government has 2.8 million employees. They're #1 agency. Well, that doesn't happen by accident. And they brought me in, and you could feel it. Why is this the best? You could just feel it just walking in. There's a buzz in the building. You could see it on the walls. You could hear it in every conversation and excitement. And I remember attending some meetings, and something I hadn't seen before, that a meeting of managers, a group of, it was like 20 people, and they got to the end of the time, and they said, well, as is our custom, we want to save the last 10 minutes to go around the group to ask everyone to name every leader here to name one thing they've done to thank and recognize their employees for something they've done. Who wants to go first? And it was just blow away that they would share openly what they're doing personally. And I noticed that other managers would take notes on their managers' ideas. That's a great one, John. I'm going to try that. It's like, and this is how they perpetuate. They've become a self-learning organization where they get better and better at these intangible things that are working for them and could work for you too. You can't just do one thing once a year, a holiday party, and say, okay, we covered that one. You can't put it in a program. That doesn't do it. It's got to be in the behaviors here and now as we're living it. So again.
But I mean, that's what we're talking about in terms of values, isn't it? Because very often organizations, well, I did a presentation to everybody on values last week, so that's done. And we can tick that box and move on.
But we don't live them. Put the values are up on the poster in the meeting room. So, okay, now now the values are only as good as you're using them. And what's your evidence of that? And are you calling people out? At Apple Computer, they have 5 core values. And what they do, it sounds crazy. They put the name of the value on a t-shirt, like integrity is one of them. And then they give it to people that personify that value. Wow. Everybody wants to collect them, and integrity. You want to know what integrity is all about in this organization? Go talk to Sam, because he's got the t-shirt.
He's got the t-shirt.
And he wore it yesterday. and how he thinks and how he decides dilemmas. That's what integrity is. And if you want to have more integrity, do what John does. It's not good enough just to put it on a piece of paper and put it on the wall or put in the annual report.
It means nothing.
You got to live it and walk it for it to be real. And when you do, that becomes now part of who the organization, and becomes part of the draw of the organization and part of the magnet to keep people there. Because why would they leave? They've got a great job.
Bob, this is fantastic stuff. This really is fantastic stuff, and I'm actually so dying to publish this and to share it with people, because I think what you're talking about is, I mean, it just makes sense, but it's also it's so transformative in organizations and in the way that organizations need to transform. And I do think particularly at this moment in time where, I think a lot of organizations are struggling to figure out, well, what does all this change mean? And how can I make this better? I think it's so timely.
And maybe what I hope I'm doing is to bring something out of the dark. That's something that's within us, and to make it that we can all talk about it. And instead of saying, well, I want that, but I can't do that at work, or the boss saying, well, wouldn't that be nice if we could do that? It's not going to happen here. Instead of saying, well, maybe the first step on that is to just have a discussion. In many ways, that's all you got to work with is a discussion. So let's have a discussion and see what people think. And if it resonates, then we'll try something. It's not the end all. And if that works, then we'll try it again. And all of a sudden, you head off on a path and becomes who you are.
That's fantastic. Bob, before we wrap up, 2 questions that I ask everybody. One is a book, and I have to say, other than your own, that's had an impact upon you. So what's the book and what was the impact?
Sure. The Nature of Scientific Revolutions.
That's a new one for me.
I read in graduate school, and it made the case that, and I apply it to everything. It made the case that evolution of science, there was always somebody that said, hey, the world's not flat. and they were considered a heretic in their day, and they were criticized, and then they got other people seeing the same thing, and that became the new reality. And this is how cultural change happens. You start by saying, well, we can't do that here, and then, you get a crack in it, and you try something, and well, that actually worked pretty well. And actually, we got fewer people leaving now, or we got the job done faster, or it's easier to hire. And then you say, well, let's do more of that, and then it sweeps, and now it's part of how we do things in business. So that has inspired me to how I view cultural change.
Brilliant. And second question is daily rituals. Do you have them? Are you happy to share them, and what do they do for you?
I do, sure. I have one. I try to hike every day, and it's easy to say I don't have time to exercise, but the benefits are enormous, and it's not just the weight, but it's the fresh air, and it's the time to think. It's kind of a form of meditation. I hike by myself. I'll hike with other people as well, but so that's a simple thing, but I religiously try to keep to that because I know I get so much from it.
Okay, and how long would you hike for?
I hike for about an hour.
Very good. Yeah,
we got lots of trails in San Diego where I'm at, and then again, it's just added bonus where I can do that with a friend, or a longer hike on the weekend. My spouse also hikes, and our kids, so a chance to.
Yeah, well, and you live in a beautiful part of the world, so there are some lovely places around where you are, so that is great. Bob, where can people reach you? We'll put everything in the notes, but if they're listening, where can they reach you now? Where they can get your book? I presume on Amazon and anywhere else like that.
Any place where else can books, they contact you? We also have it on my website, www.drbobnelson, DRBOBNELSON.com. We have an online store that has actually all my books at discounted prices, cheaper than Amazon,
Right.
But so if you can't find them, you can get them there. And then I also talk about my other services. I do a lot of speaking, and I do consulting and some coaching. Right. So
fabulous.
It's fun.
Bob, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real joy. It's been enlightening, and I just think this is just fantastic stuff. Thank you for giving your time.
Thanks for having me, John.